welcome back to my channel. It's Megan and today we are doing a book recommendations video. Lately I've been doing a lot of recommendations videos for singers, songwriters, and or movie soundtracks. Just basically songs based on books, or rather books based on songs. But today we are doing all of our book recs based on one song, and that is Olivia Rodrigo's newest bop, which is Vampire. And not that it necessarily has books based on like the exact lyrics of the song, but these are all book recommendations based on books that involve vampires and have vampires in them. So first off, huge thank you to my two bookish friends Mare and Nicole for helping me create this list. I'm not a huge paranormal fantasy reader, so I had them help me create this list, so huge thank you to them. Of course, I want to give credit where credit is due. I do have a few books on here that I've read, but most of these are either like just generally known and or they help me come up with what should be on this list. I do have this list broken down into sections, so we're gonna start off with our OG classics, because what better place to start? First up we have Dracula by Bram Stoker. I don't think that any of these classics really need any sort of description or descriptor to them because they are the classics. So yeah, we have Dracula by Bram Stoker, we have Carmilla, we have The Vampire, and we have Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. These are the four classics that I think pretty much everyone knows, but if not, then I don't know, they're vampire books. What more do you want to know? Next up we have the more 90s, 2000s, middle school age, at least for me, classics, so the nostalgic books. Starting off strong, of course, with Twilight, because who doesn't know Twilight? It's the very, what's the word, infamous novel of the Edward versus Jacob and Bella love triangle, the original love triangle, if you will, Team Edward or Team Jacob. I mean, I think everyone was reading it. I personally have never read it. Surprisingly, I've never watched it, never read it. I feel inclined to lean towards Team Edward, but I don't know, because like the little bit I do know is like interesting to hear about, because I do know that like Jacob bonds with a child, and I know that there's a sparkling vampire scene, and that there is a scene where Edward just like watches Bella sleep. So not really inclined either way, but I do love both Taylor Lautner and Robert Pattinson, so you can't go wrong either way. I mean, you get Cedric Diggory or Shark Boy. There's no wrong answer here, you know? Next up we have Vampire Academy. This is by Rochelle Mead, so I think everyone also knows Vampire Academy. There's a TV show based on it, and I do want to watch the TV show. I've never read and or watched any of this. Actually, all of these. There's like very few on this list that I've read, surprisingly. But I do want to get into Vampire Academy as well. And then also by Rochelle Mead, we have Bloodlines, and then we have Blue Bloods by Melissa De La Cruz. Next up we have more of the romance element of vampires. Not to say that the others don't have romance on them, but this is particularly focused on romance, I'd say. First up being The Coldest Touch, which is following a girl who I think everyone she touches she either kills or can like see how they're going to die or something along those lines, and she's afraid of her powers, so she befriends a vampire who is helping her come into this power and learn about it and not be so scared of it. And then we have Court of the Vampire Queen, which is a more spicy romance, and it's by Katie Robert. Then we have Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, which started, I believe, as a Draco Harry fanfiction and got turned into a book series, which is interesting. So that's always a interesting take on vampires, if you will. And the final one is The Witch and the Vampire, which I believe is a female romance novel, obviously following a witch and a vampire. Also, honorable mention in this section to From Blood and Ash. I'm not sure if that counts as a minor spoiler or not. I've heard it does, I've heard it doesn't, but being that it's just a type of species, I'm assuming it's not like a huge spoiler, so sorry if it is. I've not read the book, so I don't know. Next up is the more fantasy element of all of this. We have Serpent in the Wings of Night. This one was recommended by Nicole. I don't know anything about it other than it's vampires, and a lot of people who like Fourth Wing really like this one. I don't know what the correlation is. There's no academy that I know of. There's no dragons that I know of, but they're both really hyped on TikTok at the moment. Next we have Crave, which I do believe has an academy element, which I'm excited about, and Crave is on my TBR for July this month, so I'm excited to dive. I don't know what that was. I was about to dive like Taylor Swift, like dive into that one. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, we also have Empire of the Vampire. This is by Jake. Sorry, I'm just still thinking about how I was about to dive. Empire of the Vampire is a more adult fantasy. This is by the same author who wrote Nevernight, which if you have read Nevernight, you will know it is very, very adult, both graphically in like the gore and action, but also in the romance element. I'm interested to read Empire of the Vampire and see where that goes. And then we have The Beautiful, which is the first book on this list that I've actually read, and this is a paranormal romance set in, I want to say like 1800s New Orleans. It's like an older time New Orleans. It's following a girl who is trying to escape her past, and she goes to New Orleans and Orleans, or I guess you could say New Orleans, I don't know. And she learns of this like, I don't know, darker side of the city and gets sucked into things that she was not expecting to be sucked into, and there's the vampire element, of course. And then of course there is more and more and more. 3 honorable mentions to the Shadow Falls series, starting with Born at Midnight. This is a series by C.C. Hunter, and reading this feels like being in middle school reading a Wattpad book. It's about a girl who goes to this summer camp for abnormal humans per se, and starts to learn more about her abilities and her powers, and it's basically like a paranormal summer camp, and it was so fun and definitely read like Wattpad. I loved it so much. And then we have A Dowry of Blood, which I believe, I could be 100% wrong, I haven't read it. I believe this is following like Dracula's wife, or like some sort of female vampire element. I keep thinking of what the heck is her name? It's gone. It went by. The Bride of Frankenstein. That's what I'm thinking. I keep thinking of Bride of Frankenstein. I think it's somehow a female associated with Dracula. Could be 100% wrong, but I do have it on my TBR, so stay tuned for spooky time. Spooky season. And then last but not least we have Fangs, which is a vampire graphic novel. It looks super fun. Also a great spooky season recommendation. And there you have it. Those are my vampire book recs. Let me know what you guys think and what vampire books you would recommend, and I will check in with you in my next video. Bye friends!